something the next USDA secretary may have to deal with, the possibility of higher tariffs. But a Chinese official now says higher tariffs on its exports to the U.S. will backfire. That's what Beijing's Vice Commerce Minister had to say to a reporter's question about President-elect Trump's campaign stop idea of imposing 60% tariffs on imports from China. Now, he went on to say the tariffs would not solve the United States' own trade deficit problem, but could Mr. Trump's tariff talk actually be good for trade, including agriculture? Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan takes a look at both sides of the coin.
Ag groups want to focus back on trade, but they are also concerned it could come at a cost.
Mexico, Canada, China are always our number one, number two, number three ag markets. And so a lot of concern in agricultural circles about the fact that most likely that's where the retaliation starts first.
The ag trade deficit is expected to balloon to $42 billion in 2025 under the current administration. And Indiana farmer Kip Tom, who served as the ambassador to the United Nations in the first Trump administration, argues the focus back on trade could bode well for ag.
When Trump was president, we did nearly 50 trade deals around the world. He did the phase one with China, and granted, we didn't get to phase two or phase three, but the reality is he got it put together and he got it started following the trade war that we had with him for a little bit. So I think trade is going to be number one.
Tom says Trump's next 4 years will be looking at new trade deals. But today, groups like U.S. Meat Export Federation also want any trade negotiations to do no harm.
I think if you look at 2024 on meat exports, pork, we'll start with pork. We're pulling our weight. We're going to have record volume and record value this year, approaching 8.5 billion or so on the pork side.
Dan Hallstrom is CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. He says record demand from pork is broad-based, but the number one buyer is Mexico.
Mexico is being driven by everything. I mean, food service, retail, convenience stores. The buying power of the Mexican trade has been, it's been record-breaking, but also a little bit amazing.
Earlier this year, Mexico bumped out China as the United States' top trading partner. But in the final days of Trump's presidential campaign, he threatened to impose 25% tariffs on all Mexican imports if Mexico doesn't tighten the border.
I think as long as we don't have any disruption, yes, I think it is very well positioned to continue. Of course, you have two new administrations coming in with a lot of talk about USMCA, but as long as we stay within the confines of the USMCA agreement and follow that, I think we're well positioned to continue this momentum in Mexico.
China has also scaled back on their buys of U.S. pork, with exports down 11% so far this year. But Hallstrom points out even with increased tariffs now entering the picture again, tariffs the past 4 years never went away.
The thing to remember on these tariffs is, and we've had a tariff now for quite a few years on China and on both beef and pork. It's not the ideal situation, but it doesn't eliminate trade.
But here's what the Republicans tell me. Trump isn't going to invoke these across-the-board tariffs right away. He's going to use that as leverage to countries and looking at their trade relationship with the U.S., and his key word is reciprocity. If you don't treat us like we treat you, then I'm going to invoke tariffs.
Those close to Trump seem to be in alignment. The U.S. needs fair trade.
When we're spending $500 billion in China and they're only spending $350 billion with us, we need to level that out a little bit. I'm very optimistic trade with Trump. I have no doubts that we'll get things put together. He knows farmers don't like to get their money from the government. They like to get it from the market. And so I'm really excited about that when we talk about trade. But yet, I know everybody's pretty edgy about it at this point in time.